Hi everyone, it's me Donovan with Serverless Solutions, and today we're continuing our series on Microsoft Copilot Studio. In our last episode, we talked about how to create our own recruiter bot, pointed at our extremely fake resumes in SharePoint, and have a generative AI-powered conversation about those candidates. If you haven't seen that video and you're new to Copilot Studio, I highly encourage you to go watch it because we're going to be building off what we learned in that video today. Now, in our last video, like most videos you'll see on the topic, we made it look magical and easy, except for all that configuration work which you'll pawn off on your cloud architect. But is it really that easy to work with your own data? Is the experience always as good as advertised? We'll get to bursting that bubble in a moment, but first, I wanted to answer a question from the previous video. Somebody reached out to me to ask if Copilot Studio was safe for enterprise data and how it actually works. First off, from a security perspective, Copilot Studio, like Microsoft's other Copilot products, does not share your data for training purposes. Copilot also adheres to existing policies like GDPR and the European Union data boundary. Moreover, Copilot only surfaces organizational data that a user has at least view permissions on. There are some considerations regarding permissions when working with Azure AI Search integrated with Copilot Studio or custom providers, which we can talk about in a future video. If those topics sound interesting to you, please leave a comment below to let us know so we can continue providing content that's important to you. Now that we've talked about data privacy, we come to the question of how Copilot Studio works and how it fits into existing offerings on Azure. Microsoft has an excellent diagram for that, which I'll show you now. I say excellent because it makes a lot of sense after you've already started developing with Copilot Studio. If you're anything like me, you're looking at a lot of boxes and a lot of arrows, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. But for today, I'd like to offer my own simplified version of how I like to think about Copilot Studio. When interacting with Copilot Studio, I like to think across different verticals: engage, orchestrate, source, and act. Engage is how will my users interact with this Copilot experience? Will this bot be deployed to a traditional web app? Will it be a bot in Teams? Will it be deployed to Twitix? Whatever, you get the idea. Orchestrate. This is where you will author bots, topics, and manage conversations. Source. Consider where your Copilot is going to get its data. There are some pre-built integrations like SharePoint, public websites, and OneDrive. You can augment this experience with tailored integrations with Azure AI Search, and even custom integrations. Act. What will your Copilot do other than return generative answers? Will you integrate with ServiceNow to view and manage tickets? Make changes to SharePoint items? You can even call external APIs to get real-time information to enrich your user's experience, like getting the current weather or stats for their favorite Pokemon. With Power Platform, you have over 1,000 pre-built connections to help you take real-life actions based on conversations with your bot. Okay, so now we've gotten through those questions, it's time to peel back the veil and see if working with Copilot Studio is as easy as it seems, and if there's anything we can do to monitor our system and troubleshoot problematic outcomes for our topics. Let's get started. Now, the last time, we asked Grand Moff Tarkin to find us information on resumes, and we were pretty targeted with our questions. So today, we're going to get a little bit more abstract with our questions, and we'll see how the bot handles that. So I'm going to come down here and open up a conversation with my Copilot. I'm going to start off with something easy that I know it can execute against. Can you tell me about Grace Patel's skills? So it's come back with information about Grace Patel. Now, I've been very targeted with my question because I asked about a specific candidate that it can easily find in the documents on my SharePoint site. But now let's try something a little more general. Can you find me 3 candidates with JavaScript experience? I'm sorry, but I don't have access to specific candidate information or resumes. That's weird, because you do. And it references Grace Patel, so obviously there's something silly here. But once again, let's try mixing up these questions to see what we get. Can you find me a candidate with Python experience? I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to help you with that. Can you try rephrasing? So now I'm asking if it can find me a candidate who has MongoDB experience. I found a candidate. There we go. So sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not. And this can be difficult because it feels non-deterministic. I mean, technically everything's deterministic because randomness is just a human construct to comfortably deal with outcomes we can't predict on our own because the inputs and the outputs are just too confusing. Whoa. For all intents and purposes, let's talk about how we can deal with this system, seeing as it is non-deterministic in nature, and it seems pretty hard to troubleshoot at this point. So if you want to know more about your interactions and why you maybe got certain answers or didn't get other answers, documentation initially points you to looking all this up in Power Apps, which we'll give a try. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to look at all my apps, and we're going to search for Power Apps. Over here, we're going to land on our Power Apps page, we're going to go to Tables, and then we're going to have to make sure we look at all our tables. And then we're going to filter by conversation. And then we're going to click into Conversation Transcript and see what we see. All right, so I have a lot of logs from conversations I've had with Copilot, but what you'll immediately see is that there's some lag here. This record was created at 9:32 a.m. That's almost half an hour of lag time between a conversation and this content. And if I want to see what this conversation looked like, I can get this information. I could get this content for that specific conversation and paste it into Visual Studio and look at the JSON, I guess. Or wait, no, I can export it. That's right. Let's export this data. All right, so we're ready here and we're going to download this exported data. Well, would you look at that beautiful bean footage? That's right. This super simple, easy to parse CSV tells you everything you need to know about that conversation. Now what you could do is use CSV to JSON and then use JQ to analyze this data, being intentional to convert your conversation into valid JSON. And I thought about showing you guys that process, which I've gone through, but it was kind of torturous. And in fact, there's an easier way to get at this data. So we're back here in our browser, but this time we're going to go to the Azure portal and see how we can connect application insights to our Copilot bot. What you'll need to do if you haven't already is create an application insights instance. I've already got one created. I'm going to click into my desired instance, and then I'm going to get the connection string for that application insights instance. Then I can head back over to Copilot Studio. I can go to Settings, Copilot Details, and here under the Advanced tab, there's an option to provide a connection string for application insights. This connection string will allow your Copilot to integrate with application insights, which will allow you to view your data in a much more consumable fashion, and it will come across much more quickly than in Power Apps, which takes longer than running your front-end UI tests. So let's head right back over to the portal, and here in our application insights instance, we can go to logs, and we'll have this nice pop-up asking me if I know how to use logs. I still don't, but that's okay. And let's get into some queries. So I'm going to look for custom events. So now we have our results for our custom events, and the lag time is only going to be about a minute. And we can come down here into GenerativeAnswers and see what actually happened. So under the message, I can see that I asked to find a candidate with MongoDB experience, and the result was that the bot answered my question, and it gave me a summary of the information. I can go to some other generative answers and see what happened there, because not all of these were successful. Here's an example where I asked for a resume for a candidate who lists Python as a skill. The result is that it was filtered out by high content moderation. What does this mean? This means that the content moderation on the bot thought that it had a high likelihood of answering inaccurately to this question, so it decided not to answer it. Now, although this gives us a very detailed log of everything that happened, we can get something that's a little bit more focused on just the answers that our bot gave us. So we're going to go ahead and drop this query in, which we'll leave in the comments for this section, which are available from some of Microsoft's documentation. Now we can see that we just have the results from GenerativeAnswers. So we've got our message, our result, and the summary that was sent back to us. And here I can go through, I can see what was filtered by high content moderation and which ones were answered. The question is, can we use the information we derived from our logs to improve the experience for the users with our Copilot Studio bot? And the answer to that question is coming up in a future video. That's right, that's all the time we have for today. I hope you've enjoyed getting to learn how we can get greater visibility to how our Copilot is interacting with our users. And I look forward to sharing more with you all next time.